Bonjour tout le monde. Thank you for joining us following our special EUCO. Welcome to the press conference. J'invite le président du Conseil européen.
I invite the President of the European Council to take the floor first. Good evening, everyone. This evening we had a long and substantive debate with a grave tone because we woke up this morning to a different world on the European continent. A world in which the rules-based system has come under attack in a very painful way. This evening's debate was an opportunity for us to express our firm condemnation of this military aggression, this war which has been triggered using false pretext and bad excuses. We also had the opportunity once again to reaffirm the unity of the member states of the European Union, our unity with our partners, allies and friends around the world in defence of international law and the rules-based system which offers the utmost guarantees for peace, security and stability. Secondly, we took a political decision to add an additional package of mass sanctions which will be painful for the Russian regime. We also, along with all of the colleagues, had an opportunity to reaffirm our firm stance, this hand in hand with our allies and friends. The Council has called on the appropriate bodies to take the legal steps to put these sanctions into place. We also discussed support for the Ukrainian people and state to mobilise financing capacity, humanitarian support. We also had the opportunity to hear President Zelensky of Ukraine by video link in the conference. It was a moment of grave seriousness, dignity, cool heads. He gave us a frank message in the very difficult and painful circumstances of which we are all aware. We welcomed and saluted the dignity and courage being shown by the Ukrainian people who, at this very moment, face a tragic set of circumstances. These are women, men and children who are being murdered and gunned down. They are touched directly by a war which we all thought was impossible. Just a few days ago, this would have been unfathomable. And we're all taking diplomatic steps, fully mobilised, to ensure that these circumstances did not come to pass. We also discussed a number of other subjects, such as the importance of mobilising support for the eastern flank of the European Union, naturally hand in hand with NATO, which will have a summit on this matter tomorrow. But we had discussions with the most directly affected countries, expressing our solidarity to mobilise humanitarian support and other means to ensure that any refugees can be housed in good conditions. Finally, this situation shows to what extent the debate, which has been ongoing for a number of years around the ambition of developing a more autonomous Europe with strategic autonomy and sovereignty, that debate continued this evening. There are two examples which I'd like to give you. One, the need for engagement with regard to energy to reduce our dependency and to increase our strategic independence in that field. We have for some time now intended to have an in-depth debate on the topic in the month of March. The European Commission is drawing up proposals, and this point was discussed this evening during the Council. Secondly, the need to continue to take action to beef up our security and defence capabilities. Yet again, of course, NATO remains the cornerstone of our security. We believe that strong alliances are grounded in strong partners and strong capabilities. Finally, international engagement was discussed. It is important that we now mobilise the entire international community, all of the countries in the world, to believe in a rules-based system, believe in international law, believe in the United Nations Charter to ensure stability, security and mutual respect. we plan to engage with all of our international partners to ensure that the international community is firm and stands up and is mobilised to defend these essential principles. There you have it, a few of the key things we discussed at this evening's European Council. It was anything but an anodyne meeting, far from banal. It was a council which took stock of the gravity of the situation, which could be a turning point. It will now fall to our generation in Europe, working with all of our partners around the world, to take wise choices in the immediate term, but also in the medium and longer terms. Thank you very much, President of the Commission.
Today's events are a watershed moment for Europe. Bombs are falling on innocent women, men and children. They fear for their lives and many are dying. And all of this happens in 2022, in the very heart of Europe. President Putin chose to bring back war to Europe. This is a fully fledged invasion in Ukraine. And this fundamentally puts into question our peace order. But today I also say the European Union stands united. Tonight, European leaders were fully aligned in condemning the atrocious and unprovoked attacks. Now we have to meet the moment. We will hold the Kremlin accountable. The package of massive and targeted sanctions European leaders approved tonight clearly demonstrates that. It will have maximum impact on the Russian economy and the political elite, and it is built of 5 pillars. The first is the financial sector. Second, the energy sector. The third is the transport sector. Fourth are export controls and the ban of export financing. And finally, visa policy. Let me highlight some of the most important points. First, this package includes financial sanctions that cut Russia's access to the most important capital markets. We're now targeting 70% of the Russian banking market, but also key state-owned companies, including the field of defense. And these sanctions will increase Russia's borrowing costs, raise inflation, and gradually erode Russia's industrial base. We are also targeting the Russian elite by curbing their deposits so that they cannot hide their money anymore in safe havens in Europe. The second main pillar targets the energy sector, a key economic area which especially benefits the Russian state. Our export ban will hit the oil by making it impossible for Russia to upgrade its oil refineries, which gave actually Russia export revenues of 24 billion euros in 2019. The third topic is the that we ban the sale of all aircraft spare parts and equipment to Russian airlines. This will degrade the key sector of Russia's economy and the country's connectivity. 3/4 of Russia's current commercial air fleets were built in the European Union, the US and Canada, and therefore they are massively depending on that. The fourth point is we are limiting Russia's access to crucial technology. We will hit Russia's access to important technologies it needs to build a prosperous future, such as semiconductors or cutting-edge technologies. And finally, on visas, diplomats and related groups and business people will no longer have privileged access to the European Union. As always, these measures are closely coordinated with our partners and allies. These are, of course, the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada and Norway, but now also joined by South Korea, Japan or, for example, Australia. Our unity is our strength. The Kremlin knows this, and it has tried its best to divide us, but it has utterly failed. It has achieved exactly the opposite. We are more than ever united, and we are determined. And to conclude, let me stress that these events indeed mark the beginning of a new era. We must be very clear in our analysis. Putin is trying to subjugate a friendly European country. And he's trying to redraw the maps of Europe by force. He must and he will fail. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Monsieur le Président de la République, je vous invite.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. The President of Council and President von der Leyen have reminded us of the context. It's not a crisis, it's a war. It's a choice President Putin took to launch a number of military operations, massive military operations, not targeted ones, like he said a few hours, massive military operations, not just in Donbass. They've killed several hundred Ukrainian civilians, as indeed we heard directly from President Zelensky a few hours ago when we spoke to him. This is a war situation, and faced with it, we must draw all the conclusions, the ones that are the choice of President Putin. He wants to make European history stutter again and to bring us back to a logic of empire and confrontation. This other choice he's made is to trample over all principles, international treaties, international law, treaties Russia entered into as a sovereign state over the last decades. Having made this choice, faced with this choice he's made, we've decided to anticipate what could happen and to stay united, and we did this since the beginning. Our unity is aimed at initially giving diplomacy a choice, discussing, not making any unnecessary concessions without naivety, but through the Normandy format, through a dialogue, including Germany, and other contact that other European colleagues and indeed our institutions have been engaged in the last few weeks. It was a deliberate choice that, on the behalf of the Russian president, not to go down that path. We prepared in a unified way, as the Commission did in its preparations. I thank the President of the Commission and the Commission and the whole team for working on all this, and the close contact for over several weeks with our allies, the US, the Canadians, the UK, working our way to the sanctions which have been politically endorsed formally by the heads of state and government earlier this evening. And this has been done. And I won't go into the details of the list. It's a first answer. You heard much from the President of the Commission just now. It's an initial response. We have decided to inflict severe costs upon Moscow on different sectors, on different persons. Further measures at a government level will be taken. I asked for a number of things to be put in train this morning on a number of persons and assets as a complement to the measures you just heard about. Belarus is complicit in this offensive, so they will also be targeted in these measures. And I wanted to underscore that because of what's been happening in the last few weeks. The other very important thing we all agreed on, which I want to underscore yet again, is our full support to the Ukraine. Unprecedented economic aid has been approved. We have adopted a macro-financial aid package of 1.2 billion euros. It will go even further, and all financial and other means will be mobilized. And France will be putting an extra 300 million euro as part of that extra effort I just mentioned. And we are prepared to go on supplying material for support of the population and for support of the military. And I said that personally to President Zelensky. Thirdly, protection for European citizens and of all nations and people. That starts with military protection. As I confirmed today, and we notified NATO, and tomorrow there's the NATO summit, and I'll be confirming the detail there. France will continue to play the reassurance role that she plays with our allies. We're going to be sending a new group of troops to Estonia as part of the advanced force presence. We will continue to be policing the Baltic airspace as of March, and our deployment in Romania will continue and be expanded. We also VGTF as the framework nation, and we will continue to hold our place there. We stand with our allies infallibly. Also, rapid measures to deal with the crisis on another front, particularly the energy price front. Measures to help citizens of Europe, our businesses, to protect them and help them. But we also take measures to protect democracy and our public opinion in this new context. We will be taking extra measures on the cybersecurity front and also to combat disinformation. Disinformation is being waged on social networks and Russian propaganda relays and networks on our national soil too. And I'd also like to pay tribute to President Michel for all the initiatives he's taken, all his efforts, all his coordination over the last few weeks. And I'd also like to reiterate what he said and what President von der Leyen said and thank her too for her efforts. I think this has shown again that we have to accelerate the sovereignty agenda for Europe. The tragic times are back in history. It's tragic again. War is back on our soil. If there was ever any need to prove that Europe is not just a market for consumers, but is a power that must think about her energy independence, her climate transition, and do so on her own behalf, must think about her own defense, Europe, to protect citizens, to protect our borders, and to project vis-à-vis our allies, and to also have technology sovereignty. Well, if there was ever any need to demonstrate the need for any of that, this war proves why we need this. We have had this agenda in the last few months and years, but we will accelerate it in the coming months or years. Unfortunately, Europe has no choice but to become a power and to act. Thank you.
In the room, Irini, you're first. Please go to the stand.
I'm
from Greek public television. Can I ask, do you feel betrayed by Vladimir Putin? He didn't keep his promises. He started a war. And can I ask, are you still in favor of dialogue and under what conditions? Thank you.
Nous avons, comme je le disais, tout.
As I said, we have done everything we possibly could to make dialogue successful, the diplomatic path successful. The Minsk agreements were the agreed framework by all of the parties to the Normandy format, giving it authority and legitimacy. Up to just a few hours before the launch of these military operations and the recognition of two illegitimate republics and then the military attack, we were still having talks with President Putin about the details of the implementation of the Minsk agreements. That means that there was certainly duplicity. A deliberate choice, was taken consciously by President Putin to launch a war when it was still possible to negotiate peace. In that context, the situation is what we know it to be. We have expressed our unconditional support to the Ukrainian people and their authorities, their president. That is the support that we can give. It is solidarity amongst Europeans. It brings with it a list of sanctions, but it also means that we have to keep channels open so that a ceasefire can be achieved as soon as possible and hostilities ended. Because as I said earlier today, civilians are dying. That is the situation as I see it today. But again, this was a deliberate choice by the Russian president to launch a war, and there are conclusions and consequences to take from that.
Markus, you have the floor. Markus Becker.
Markus Becker with Der Spiegel from Germany. This is a question for all the three of you, if I may. It's about the fact that obviously the oil and gas imports from Russia are not to be curbed at the moment in the scope of the sanctions package. And this is about also something that the Polish Prime Minister said during his doorstep. He said that Mr. Putin takes the money from us Europeans for his oil and his gas and turns it into invasion of aggression. So was this dilemma this moral dilemma, something the leaders talked about today, and how do you think the EU should deal with this dilemma? Thank you.
Yeah, we discussed a lot about this important question, this important topic, the energy sector. And this is the demonstration that this is very important for all of us to learn the lessons and to be less dependent. This is what we are trying to do with our climate change agenda, especially with the green transition, because we think it's important to have more sovereignty in this field. But of course, the transition will be extremely important. That's why we are taking many concrete initiatives in order to see how it will be possible in the short term, but also in the mid-term, to diversify our supply chains in order to be less dependent. And again, this one very concrete, very obvious example that demonstrates that we need to develop our strategic autonomy.
Well, first of all, indeed, the one instrument that is being used concerning fossil fuels from Russia is that the instruments are being banned that are crucial to refine the oil. I mentioned the 24 billion euros per year that are the revenues for refined oil. These instruments are built in Europe. They are unique and cannot be replaced globally by other suppliers. So we will see that over time there will be a depletion of revenues from the refined oil. No chance anymore for Russia to refine oil and then sell it. On a second sheet of paper, we have to look at the fact that we are indeed today too dependent of Russian fossil fuels. Russia has proven, Gazprom has proven, not to be a reliable supplier. And we have to do everything to reduce this dependency of Russian gas, oil and coal. And indeed, at the moment being, we have been working hard in the last weeks to come to a stage where we are able to say today, for this winter, we would have enough supplies of gas from elsewhere, LNG gas, from reliable suppliers, in case that President Putin would completely decouple us from Russian gas. But this is the short term. And indeed, in the mid and long term, we have to develop a clear strategy with these bad experiences over the last year. We have to develop a clear strategy how to get completely independent of Russian fossil fuel. One of the solutions is indeed, if I look at the gas sector, to work with the suppliers for LNG gas. It has the advantage that we have the terminals, we have the pipeline network all over the European Union. So from wherever the LNG gas is landing, it can be brought, transported to every different part of the European Union. But it also has a second big advantage. This whole infrastructure can be used over time for green hydrogen. We do not have to build a new infrastructure, but we can use all these pipelines. So the motto is get rid of the dependency of Russian gas and go deep into the renewables, and this will be our new strategy we have to intensify.
J'ai une dernière question de Mathieu Coach, BFM. Mathieu.
Bonjour Madame la Présidente, bonjour Messieurs les...
Good morning, Madam President, Mr. President. Now, you spoke to Vladimir Putin earlier this evening. What was the state of mind, the spirit, the type of conversation you had? Is there any point in this dialogue after somebody has stepped all over, trampled international law, and Jean-Yves Le Drian called him a dictator? And after the crisis and probably refugees flowing into our countries, will France host any of them? Well, on the crisis, the humanitarian crisis you referred to, well, we talked about it at length over the last night. I think unanimously we could say that full solidarity on behalf of all Europeans was expressed. Indeed, for some of the people around the table, this crisis reminded them of a time when maybe less solidarity was shown, when migratory flows were on other borders of Europe, the need for Europe to be showing solidarity and responsibility together. So France will step up to the plate, be full of solidarity to assist the people of Ukraine and to help all those fleeing the territory of the Ukraine and might find themselves on EU territory. We will show solidarity and we will be prepared to host as we need to in a coordinated European way, showing solidarity and responsibility. Secondly, on your question to me, I had a direct and frank exchange of views with President Putin. It was fairly quick. President Zelensky had asked me to do so earlier on, to ask for a ceasefire as quickly as possible, and to propose to President Putin that he start discussing with President Zelensky, who was requesting discussions because he himself could not reach President Putin. So I passed on a message from France to the Russian Federation, which was very clear, and also passed on a message from the President of the Ukraine to the Russian President. But it didn't lead to any impact, as you can see, because the President of Russia has chosen war. It is my responsibility, I believe, however, to take such initiatives when I am requested to do so by, in this case, the Ukraine. But I also feel that while condemning these actions, while being determined to continue action, while being determined to have sanctions, it's also my duty, I think, to leave the door open, the road open, so that when the right conditions are found, we can find a cessation of hostilities or a path toward it for the people of the Ukraine. Thank you, Presidents, Madam President.
See you soon.